Hey everybody, how's it going? And welcome to another MAMG Let's Play of 999. When we left off, it's been a few days because my recording software decided to corrupt the entire video game data file and I couldn't use any of it. It sucked. I think I know what caused it though, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful, but it is a little bit earlier for my filming. I'm kind of getting back into the feel of it, so that way if this does mess up, I have time to fix it, because last time I waited way too long. It's partly my own fault, but I want to blame my computer as well, even though this computer's been running super well, so I shouldn't say too many bad things about it. But anyways, we were on our way to the true ending, and we didn't get very far, to be honest with you. There's still a lot of stuff to cover, and a lot of crazy things are going to happen. So what I'm going to do, in order to make up for the fact that I missed last time, is I'm going to do kind of a double-length episode. So this is probably going to be about an hour for us to get through, but I know what I need to do, and I don't have to worry about like wandering around too much. This is actually, the first thing that we're gonna run into is when we open the drawer after we solve the Morse code puzzle, we start reading about Alice. Did that mean? Junpei couldn't hold back. He had to know what was in that file. Each page was covered, oh yeah, this is the hieroglyphic thing. Okay, this part kind of goes quick, but then we're gonna go back to another section where, here we go. Alright, so we can't go past this part again. This must be a key to the library on the bottom deck. So it would seem. The bottom deck. The library. Junpei remembered something he'd heard from Seven when they'd been in the chemical closet. Alice sleeps in a small chamber past the forest of knowledge, beneath the navel of the gigantic. Did beneath the navel mean the bottom deck? Did forest of knowledge mean the library? If it did, then was Alice in a room somewhere beyond the library? What's wrong? Junpei blinked. Only then did he notice Ace looking at him, curiosity and concern written across his face in equal parts. There was no reason for Junpei to hide his thoughts. He began to explain his theory to Ace. Then he stopped. It wouldn't make any sense if Ace didn't know who Alice was supposed to be. So he told Ace everything June had told him. It's probably a bad idea. Everything about the Egyptian priestess, about Ice 9. And finally, about the woman who wouldn't melt who had been recovered from the Titanic disaster. He told them about how she had been called All Ice, which had eventually turned to Alice, and how she had been purchased by an English millionaire who called himself Lord Gourdain. And how Gourdain had hid Alice somewhere on the ship. And you think that he hid her in a small room beyond the library on the bottom deck. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess so. I see. Ace stared off into the distance, his hand slowly and absent-mindedly stroking his beard. After a few moments, his hand stopped. He turned slowly to look at Junpei, and his brows drew closer. Junpei, have you ever heard of the term CAS? CAS? It stands for Cell Alive System. It is an advanced technology for freezing and preserving organic matter. Put simply, it is a technique that allows one to freeze things without the formation of ice crystals. Normally, if you freeze something fresh, water within its cells expands as it crystallizes, damaging the cell membrane. CAS, however, works differently. The object to be frozen is supercooled using magnetic fields, and then frozen instantly and uniformly, giving the ice crystals no time to form. It was originally developed for the preservation of food, as an alternative to the normal freezing process. Now, however, there are rumors that it can be used for other things. What do you mean, other things? Well, there are obvious medical uses, but perhaps also space travel. Space travel? Are you serious? Surely you've heard of suspended animation, cryogenic freezing. It's a fairly common idea in the science fiction books and films. People are sometimes frozen for especially lengthy journeys through space. That was when Junpei understood what Ace was suggesting. Whoa. Wait a minute there. Ace looked at him and raised an eyebrow. Are you saying that Alice was frozen using that CAS thing? Well, I'm sure the possibility is quite low, but it is a possibility. If this special ice you call Ice 9 does indeed exist, and if CAS were used to freeze her into that sort of ice instantaneously, you think that she could be alive? Well, I can't say for sure, of course. I'm only talking about possibilities. The melting point for Ice 9 is 96 degrees, right? If she were put somewhere where she could reach that temperature, that's nuts. Are you really saying she could have defrosted and started walking about? You're quite right. It does sound unbelievable. But if she had, then we would have an explanation for the man we found dead on the floor. You mean the guy dressed like a captain? Yes. He was dead when we found him. Clearly, he was murdered. But if he was murdered, then by who? It couldn't have been one of us. That would be impossible. In order to enter the captain's quarters, one must first open door 1. That door that requires the Earth key prevented us from accessing door 1. Who was it that opened that door? Santa and Lotus. Right. Clearly, the two of them could not have opened door 1, or any other door for that matter. Who else then could have done so? Junpei thought for a second. No, nobody. After Santa and Lotus had used the Earth key, they turned back and met up with Junpei and June, who had just returned from EDAC. The four of them then proceeded to return to the large hospital room to reunite with Ace, Seven, and Clover. When Junpei and his team had gone into the shower room, Ace, Seven, and Clover had been left in the large hospital room, but they would have been unable to open door 1. Perhaps when Junpei and June had taken the elevator to door 2 then? No, that would have been impossible. They had been gone only 5 minutes. No human being could have run to the captain's quarters, killed the man there, and run back in 5 minutes. It would be impossible for any of us to be the murderer. That being the case, who could have killed him? Wouldn't it make sense if his killer was someone who had been in the ship for some time? A person like that would know the ship well. They would know the locations of all the hidden passages and secret doors. The numbered doors would mean nothing to someone like that. It would be a simple thing for them to enter the captain's quarters. Then, you're saying the killer was Alice? It was Junpei's turn to raise an eyebrow. Ace drew his thumb across his lips thoughtfully. Well, this is all only one possible theory. All ice. Alice. Was Alice indeed somewhere on this ship with them? Junpei had only one clue. The key card in his hand. It would, he hoped, grant him access to the Forest of Knowledge. But beyond that, what waited for him beyond the Forest of Knowledge? Whatever might be there, however, would have to wait. At that moment, there was nothing Junpei could do. He gripped the keycard tighter and shoved it deep into his pocket. Alrighty then. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and get myself out of here and continue the story onward, so I'll see you guys in just a few short seconds. Okay, so our next stop is after we leave the captain's area, and Clover, of course, is having something in her pockets, and she tells Junpei it's a note. A note? Yeah, I found it in the pocket of the guy with the captain's clothes. It says something about the darkness of the sinister hand or something. What the hell? Let me see it. But Junpei wasn't going to get to see it. From the other end of the hall, he heard Ace's voice. Captain Troll. Hey, Junpei, Clover, what are you two doing? Hurry up. Clover shrugged. I'll show it to you later, alright? Come on, we gotta hurry. Before Junpei could protest, she was gone. At least she doesn't have an axe this time because it wouldn't be in her pocket. It'd be freaking stuck up the back of her shirt, around the corner, and off down the long stem of the L. A note? A note. Junpei was curious, but there was something else that bothered him. Her pocket had been bulging, far more than it would from just a note. Yeah, because she probably took the captain's bracelet. Anyways, here we go. I was gonna say it's really not that far before the next section. They reach B deck at the same time. Jumpy! Clover! June's face was excited. Something had happened. That much Junpei could tell simply by looking at her. What's up? Given their situation, he was not inclined to be excited about the sudden developments. June, however, couldn't contain herself. We found it. Found what? We found it. What did you find? The last door. We found door 9. What? Come on, just follow us. We'll explain on the way. Okay, let's go. Seven turned and jogged off down the stairs. The rest followed. We finally made it. The relief and excitement in her voice echoed what each of them felt. Yeah, it's finally time. Junpei wasn't quite ready to believe they'd really done it, at least not just yet. Still, if everyone said it was door 9, then it probably was. He could feel his heart racing. A mixture of anticipation and fear ran through his veins, and he could feel his legs shaking. He was doing his best to maintain a sense of healthy skepticism, but he wouldn't deny that the prospect of an escape was an exciting one. You'd think reading this twice would make me better at reading something, but apparently not. But there was one thing he couldn't get off his mind. The numbered door could only accommodate between 3 and 5 people. There were 7 of them on their way to door 9. That meant even in the best case scenario, there would be 2 of them who would have to stay behind. 2 people. He didn't have any solutions to that problem yet, but he was desperately hoping one would present itself. Junpei looked over at the clock. The hands indicated that it was 4:30. They had 90 minutes before their time was up. Hey, Junpei, June, what the hell are you two doing? Hurry it up. Santa's voice jolted Junpei out of his reverie. Let's go, Junpei. June took off down the stairs, jogging as quickly as she could. Junpei followed. Here we go. We're gonna go into the room, the sanctuary. It's such a far way to go, though. It really is. It's gonna take them forever to get there. As a group, they piled into the elevator and rode impatiently down to E deck. It looked familiar. There was a metal grate between the 2 elevators. Seven grabbed a hold of it and began to talk. I know I told you to explain it earlier, but honestly, there ain't much to explain. After we split off from you guys, the 4 of us got into the elevator on the left, and that took us on the other side of the grate. After that, they'd headed down another hallway. It took them toward the bow of the ship, and eventually to the number 6 that June and Junpei had found earlier. With 4, they'd been able to open the door and keep going. As usual, they'd faced the locked door, but it had been forced to complete 2 different areas before they could unlock it. Once they were through that door, there was another hallway that went in the other direction, towards the stern. So, on your way you found the elevator. That's right. So in other words, you kinda did a lap, huh? You came from that side to this side. Yeah. With that settled, Junpei looked around. So, where's the number 9 door? Over here. Follow me. 7 began walking, down the hallway that led toward the stern. Junpei and the others broke into a jog to keep up with them. They had been walking for a while, June in silent step with Junpei when she spoke. You know, it's because of Santa that we're all here right now. Huh? That all 7 of us are gonna go to door 9. You don't get it? Santa, 7, and Lotus. What's their digital route? 9. It's 9. That's right. They could have just left me behind and kept going, if they wanted to. But they didn't. Yes, because Santa wouldn't let them. He said, we can't leave June behind. That's why we went looking for you guys. And then you got on the elevator and went back to the central staircase. That's right. Well, I wouldn't have called that one. That Santa would be the one to stick up for you. I mean, Junpei felt his eyebrows knit as he considered that. Oh, don't get me wrong. Perhaps June had sensed Junpei's concern. I don't mean the 7 and Lotus said they wanted to leave me behind. We were just talking about it and Santa objected to it first. Junpei was about to respond when 7 suddenly stopped. In front of them stood a door. So, this is... Junpei couldn't see 7's face, but he could see him nod. There's no other place for us to go? Nope. Just look around. At the end of the hallway was a thick iron wall. To the left and right, other hallways led to the port and starboard sides of the ship, but they were both closed off by thick metal grates. It looked as though 7 was right. The door in front of them was their only choice. Alright, let's get moving. He pulled open the door and walked in. Junpei took a deep breath and followed. It appeared they'd been telling the truth. The first thing Junpei saw when he entered the room was a number, 9. Like all the others, it was a rough thing made of red paint. The door it decorated sat on the back wall of a rectangular room. Junpei ran up to it. It was a large double door with powerful styling. Something about it was almost majestic, and it made the red paint look especially garish. Junpei grabbed the handle and shook. It didn't budge, but then he hadn't really expected it to. The red was bolted to the wall next to the door. Its display read, vacant. Finally, they'd arrived. Junpei felt a flood of emotion wash over him. He felt a chill down his back, and his chest tightened, even as his blood began to boil. He was about to speak when... Junpei, look behind you. He turned around. Junpei could scarcely believe what he saw. A door and a 9. There was another one. Hey, what the hell? What the hell's going on here? His words came slowly, and his brain struggled to understand what he'd seen. On shaky legs, he made his way to the second 9. It was a small door, set parallel to the door they'd come through, but in the other corner of the room. 9. There was no mistaking the number, and as if any more proof was needed, a red was bolted to the wall near the door. He grabbed the handle and shook the door, not because he expected it to open, but because he had to make sure it was real. Why the hell are there 2 doors? It was Ace who spoke first. Do you think perhaps one is the right door and the other is the wrong one? Lotus was skeptical. I don't know about that. That seems unlikely. What makes you say so? Well, think about all the rooms we've been through so far. They're full of puzzles, but there are always hints about how to solve them. I'm pretty sure there aren't any rooms where we just had to do our best, go with our best guess, and leave it to instinct to solve the puzzle. Do you really think that at the very end of the game, Zero is going to suddenly throw in something that depends entirely on luck? Then you're saying there's some sort of hint in this room. No, I don't think there's a hint anywhere in here. I searched it very well when I was in here before. I didn't find anything that might have been a hint though. Well, that means... yeah, both of these doors are the right door. I mean, if you think about it, Zero never actually said there was only one door with a 9 on it. The exit is hidden, but it's there. Seek the exit. Seek the door that carries a 9. Junpei began to mutter to himself. So, if there are 2 number 9 doors, if we split it up right, it's not gonna work. Junpei blinked and looked up at Clover. She held out her hand. You've got a notebook and a pen, right? Can I borrow them? Slightly confused, he pulled them out and handed them to her. Look at this. Clover opened the notebook to a blank page and set it down on the desk. Everyone else gathered around her and watched as she wrote down a series of numbers. You get it? The numbers on the top are all the combinations with digital roots of 9. The numbers on the bottom are the people who don't fit. There's only 8 possibilities if we split up into 2 groups of 3 or 4 people. So, if 3 people go through the door, then 4 people are left behind. If 4 go through, then 3 are left behind. Right? Clover nodded, almost as if she were pleased with herself for solving a difficult math problem. The room went very quiet. Silence lay across everyone like a thick, heavy blanket. No one spoke. Their faces were blank. Desperate for something else to look at, Junpei turned his eyes to the room around him. As he did, he began to wonder, what was it? The walls were covered with candles. The wavering flame made the shadows of Junpei and his companions look as though they were dancing. 2 rows of wooden pews filled most of the room. Between them was a strip of rich, red carpet. Yeah, we've seen a dead body on there before too. The carpet ran straight through the room, ending at the door that pointed to the stern of the boat. Actually, she didn't die because she was gone after we came back. Anyways, different ending, different spoilers. At the other end of the carpet, an altar? It was a recessed space set into the wall between the 2 other doors. Sitting on a raised section of the altar was a coffin. A coffin. A coffin. A coffin. No, it couldn't possibly be. But if it wasn't, then whose body occupied it? That was as far as Junpei wanted to pursue that line of thought. We already know who's in there, and I cannot wait until he gets reunited with Clover. It's gonna be so sweet! He decided not to think about the coffin for the time being. At that moment, Seven spoke. There was an edge of humor to his voice, but it was forced. Okay, I give up. I figured if we sat around here long enough, someone would volunteer, but I guess nobody's got the guts to do it. Junpei didn't understand, and he wasn't the only one. What? You guys didn't figure it out yet? Fine. Let me enlighten you. Clover was mostly right with her little explanation earlier, but she missed something. She wasn't really wrong, she just... screw it. Let me just write it out. Seven snatched up the notebook and began to write in it. Everyone else clustered around him, desperate for a look. If you're trying to leave with a group of 3 and a group of 4 and get everybody out, Clover's right. But there's another way. Only one combination, though. If you split us up into groups of 3, 3, and 1, you can make this combination. Wait, this means... Don't get me wrong here. I'm not trying to copy Ace or anything like that. Even if he hadn't been the hero back in the big hospital room, I'd still be saying the same thing. The same thing? Are you saying... Yeah, I am. I'll stay behind. Why are you acting so heroic all of a sudden? Are you some kind of idiot? Lotus was the first to speak. That in itself was a little strange. She'd reacted much differently when Ace had volunteered. I'm completely against this. I don't want to owe you for getting out of here. The rest of them began to speak all at once. I'm against it too. I didn't want to leave Ace behind, and I don't want to leave you either. I don't like that idea. There's gotta be other options. I disagree as well. I can't say I care much for you being the hero. Finally, they quieted down. Junpei looked at Seven. Well, there you go, Seven. Proposal denied. Clover's right. There's gotta be a better way than this. Seven made some noise that was somewhere between a derisive snort and a cough. Doesn't make any sense. He was doing his best to pretend they were making a foolish decision, but Junpei could see the twinkling of water at the corners of Seven's eyes. That was when Santa spoke. Whoa, hold on a minute. I haven't said anything yet. Until then, Junpei hadn't realized that Santa had stayed quiet for the whole discussion of Seven's fate. Something in his voice made Junpei uncomfortable. Are you agreeing? You want to leave him here? Santa shook his head. Nah, I'm against it. I don't want to leave Seven here alone. Then I don't see how it matters. I said alone. Huh? I said I don't want to leave Seven alone. There was a dull shine in Santa's eyes. They were cold and hard. Junpei felt himself shiver. What the hell are you... What? You don't get it? I can't leave just one person. I need 2 more. 3 people, including Seven. I'll be leaving behind 3 people. That's my proposal. No. Those are my orders. What do you mean, orders? What the hell makes you think you can order us around? Who the hell's gonna listen to you? You all will. In 3 seconds, you won't have a choice. What? 3, 2, 1. Santa was so fast, Junpei could barely see him. When he moved, it was almost like watching a dance, his feet moving like lightning. He spun and... He had June. See? I told you. His lips curled into a cruel, mocking smile. A shudder traveled the length of Junpei's spine. His chest froze, and he could feel his breath going stale in his lungs. Nothing made sense. Junpei felt as though his head were about to explode. Santa's sudden change in attitude, saying that he needed 2 more. The gun in his right hand, a revolver. Santa had grabbed June from behind and pressed what Junpei's shaken brain identified as a revolver roughly against her temple. What was he doing with the gun? Where on earth had Santa possibly found the gun? Junpei's questions roared in his mind, but his mouth refused to ask them. Seven spoke, almost as though he had sensed Junpei's confusion. The gun's from the other room. What room? One of the rooms behind door 6. I should have known he was gonna do this. I should have taken the gun. Well, it's too late now. A mixture of fury and frustration twisted Seven's face, and he glared at Santa. Santa, for his part, didn't so much as flinch. The corner of his lip twitched into a slightly wider smile. Then, the smile faded, and he began to move. He walked backward, dragging June with him. Before long, his back was resting against the door. On the wall next to him was the red. He put his hand on the scanner panel quickly, and then forced June to do the same. Now, time for you to start following my orders. Ace, Lotus, congratulations. I've chosen you to come with me. Put your hands on the red. That was what Santa had meant when he said he needed 2 more. Hey, you deaf? I gave an order. Santa's eyes narrowed the slits. He glared at Ace and Lotus. They stayed, frozen, like deer caught in headlights of an oncoming car. Right. Fine. I didn't want to waste any bullets, but you guys just don't get it. No sooner were the words out of Santa's mouth when his hand twitched. And the gun roared. A section of the floor exploded, scattering wood splinters across the floor. A thin plume of smoke snaked out of the hole in the floor. There could be no doubt that the gun was real and worked. But why? Santa, why are you... Clover's voice spoke of betrayal and disbelief. Santa, I thought you were one of us. I thought we were friends. What? You knew about the leaf word and the 4-leaf clover. Santa's cheek twitched, almost imperceptibly. What the hell is that? I've got no idea. You're lying. Shut up. Just shut up. You want me to put a bullet in your head? Flecks of spit flew from Santa's mouth. His face twisted with rage. Clover recoiled, her eyes wide. When she spoke, her voice was very small. Santa? He snorted, then shook his head vigorously and turned to face Ace and Lotus. Alright, what are you still standing there for? Get over here and scan those bracelets. I don't have all day. Oh, what's the matter? Your hearing starting to go? Going senile, maybe? Ace and Lotus stood still and didn't move. Almost as if they couldn't move. June's face was pale behind Santa's arm. Her eyes were wild and her chest heaved with every quick breath, like an animal cornered by a predator. Junpei's mind worked furiously. What were they gonna do? Then he realized something. There was nothing they needed to do. There was nothing to debate. June's safety was the first priority. That much was obvious. Doing as Santa had commanded meant that she would be safe from at least 2 threats. She wouldn't be shot, and she would leave the ship alive, along with Santa, Ace, and Lotus. There was only one thing for Junpei to do. He turned around to Ace and Lotus. Please, go. Huh? But, Jumpy, what are you saying? If you stay here, you're gonna be stuck, Jumpy. And so will Clover and Seven. I know. But I don't need you to worry about us. We'll figure something out. Right, Seven? Right. You just leave it to us. It's gonna piss me off to do what Santa says, but... Don't worry about me either. There's still something I have to take care of. But, no, you can't. Ace, Lotus, don't do it. Don't worry about me, please. June was almost crying. Junpei walked around behind Ace and Lotus. Without a word, he laid a hand on each of their backs and gently pushed them forward. They almost stumbled, then righted themselves and took another step, and another. They turned around and Junpei nodded. Ace and Lotus turned around again and walked slowly toward the door where Santa was waiting for them. After what seemed like an eternity, they stopped in front of the door marked 9. Santa smiled. Alright, well, let's get those hands on the scanner panel. What's the holdup? What, you think I'm messing around here? I don't care about this girl. The red doesn't need a person, you know? All I need is the bracelet. You get it? Good. Now put your hands on the scanner. I'm not gonna say it again. He shoved the revolver harder against June's head, and she winced. Fine. Ace sighed, defeated, and placed his hand on the scanner panel. Lotus was next. Lotus glared at Santa and slammed her hand on the scanner panel. The fourth asterisk blinked on. Good job. Now Lotus, pull that lever. As soon as the door opens, you get in there. Try anything stupid, and you know what happens, right? Junpei could almost hear Lotus's teeth grind. The door slid open. Door number 9 opened at last. It opened with a low, powerful rumble. A drum roll to welcome the chosen few. Alright, go! Lotus and Ace walked through the door, their eyes furious but defeated. Santa waited until they were all there inside, and then hauled himself and June across the threshold as well. 6, 7, 8. Later. After exactly 9 seconds, the door swung shut. The gust of air it created caused the candles on the altar to flicker and die. The room fell silent. Junpei, Clover, and Seven had been left behind. And actually, this is where I ended it in the last video, was when they were waiting in the sanctuary room after Santa had taken June. But of course, we get to go for another 30-ish minutes. Clover looked down at her hand and traced with her finger the faint blue veins that crisscrossed them. Seven shoved his arms into the front of his overalls and scratched his stomach. No one spoke. Silence made the air feel thick and oppressive. Desperate for something, anything to occupy his mind, Junpei walked to the larger of the 2 9 doors. He stood in front of it and looked at the red. It read, engaged. He moved to the smaller door. The red read, vacant. The digital root of the remaining people was 7. See? You need Snake. You need Snake. There was no possible way for them to open the door with the 9 on it. Junpei touched the surface of the door. He thought about June, about Akane Kurashiki. Was she safe? That was all that mattered to him. If she was alive, if she had escaped this horrible boat, that was what Junpei prayed for. 7 came up next to him. He pulled off his hat, scratched his head, and sighed. So, what do you want to do, Junpei? What do you mean, what do I want to do? What can we do? 7 opened his mouth to respond when... Yes! Oh, they're going to be reunited! A noise echoed through the room. Someone was pounding on something, vigorously. It wasn't mechanical. It was certainly human. Junpei and 7 looked at one another. What the hell is that? Shh! Quiet! Clover motioned for 7 to be quiet. She put one finger to her lips and closed her eyes in concentration. The 3 of them listened, trying to determine where the sound was coming from. Where? Where was it coming from? Could it be? Hey, I think it's coming from this coffin. You're right. Let's open it. But how? What are those muscles for? For show? You're telling me to force it open? Just shut up and try. Junpei and 7 grabbed hold of the coffin. They tried to get a good grip with what little purchase they could find, and pulled with all their strength. Yeah, don't flip the coffin over. Snake's in there. Man, it won't even budge. There was some sort of keypad attached to the coffin. Its purpose would not have been difficult to determine. Their eyes were almost immediately drawn to it. Not another one. Yeah, looks like it. Do you think we have to put in the right password or it won't open? I think so. The noise wasn't stopping. In fact, it was getting louder. They had no idea who was in the coffin, but they wanted out, and they wanted out now. They had no idea what they were supposed to do. Without a passcode, it didn't seem like there was a lot they could do. They couldn't even tell how many numbers the passcode needed to be. Isn't there a hint somewhere? Well, let's look for one. Unfortunately, there didn't seem to be anything near the coffin. Clover ran to examine the pews, and 7 investigated the desk, but they turned up nothing. The sound still wouldn't stop. It wasn't a noise that belonged in that room. What was the passcode? What was Junpei supposed to do? How was he supposed to figure it out? He needed something. The world blinked. Suddenly, there was a voice inside of Junpei's head. Truth and gone. Truth and gone. Truth and gone. Ah, now truth is asleep in the darkness of the sinister hand. What the hell was that? That voice? Junpei was utterly and completely baffled. Huh? What are you talking about? What's up? 7 and Clover ran over to him, but Junpei didn't know what to tell him. If he told them he'd heard a voice, they'd laugh, or worse, think he was going insane. So all he said was, "Oh, nothing." He cleared his throat a little too loud and looked pointedly down at his bracelet. There were a pair of small buttons protruding from either side of it. Junpei pressed the buttons on the bracelet. Okay, so truth and gone, truth and gone, truth and gone, right? So truth and gone, truth and gone, truth and gone. Yep. I think it's this one. Right, left, right, left, right, left. That was it. Eight numbers blinked on and then off the bracelet display. Junpei checked one last time. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. Huh? Huh? Hey, what the hell were those numbers? Oh my gosh, are those? Junpei didn't answer. He simply walked straight to the coffin. He knelt down in front of the keypad, running over the numbers in his head so that he wouldn't forget. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. 1, 4, 3, 8, 3, 4, 2, 1. With trembling fingers, he punched them in. That was all of them. He punched the E button. There was a moment of complete silence. Then, there was the sound of the coffin lid unlatching. Someone sat up out of it. Oh, is that you, Clover? I apologize for worrying you. Snake! Oh my, how did you... Junpei? And 7, is that you? Is everyone else there as well? Just like Rip Van Winkle. Still, it was very much like Snake to simply cut to the heart of the matter and ask. Junpei and 7 shared a wry smile. Clover's eyes were filled with tears. You're back! With a cry of joy, she leapt into Snake's arms. Aww. Gently now. My body's still a little weak. You're back! You're back! Clover looked like nothing so much as a lost child who had finally found her home. She cried and cried and cried. Her eyes were red, and her nose was running. She hiccuped and gasped, as if she were about to begin hyperventilating. You're back! You're really here! Her voice was happy, but almost desperate, as if she feared he would disappear again if she stopped talking to him. Tear after tremendous tear rolled its way down her face. Her small arms strained as she clutched Snake's body as tightly as she could. Perhaps she had to convince herself he was real. Perhaps she was worried he would be gone the moment she let go. Perhaps she simply didn't know what else to do. Oh, you're back! Come now, what's gotten into you? You're acting as though I've returned from the grave. Not as though. You did! I really thought you were dead. Huh? Jerk! Idiot, idiot, idiot! Aw, Clover. Clover broke into sobs so great she could no longer talk. It was a touching reunion between brother and sister. Even though Junpei knew they had little time, and every minute they waited was a minute they wasted, it felt cruel to pull them apart. Junpei and Seven sat down on one of the pews, waiting for Clover to calm down before explaining to Snake what had transpired. I see. I believe I understand things rather well now. Thank you. In the shower room, there's a dead body wearing my clothes. Because of that, you thought that I was dead. Correct. He had quickly and neatly summarized the events of several hours. Junpei nodded. You also discovered a corpse in the captain's quarters, and Santa turned on you here, in this room. Do I have it straight? Seven had been rather surprised to learn of the dead body in the captain's quarters. With everything that had taken place, Junpei simply forgotten to mention it to him. Well then, I've got a pretty decent idea of what happened while I was indisposed, but it's still something of a mystery who did all this and why. The corpse in the shower room that looked like me, and the corpse in the captain's quarters. Why were they killed in the way they were? You don't know? No. Why would I? The guy in the shower room. We don't know who he is, but let's just call him Mr. X. Anyway, Mr. X is wearing Snake's clothes. But you're wearing some kind of weird robes. That means someone took your clothes and put them on Mr. X. We need to figure out who that was. I apologize, but I have no idea who might have done this to me. I only just now woke up. I was unconscious during all the events you just described to me. They must have undressed me and changed my clothes during that time. When were you knocked out? When we split up to look for the red. Where did they get you? Do you remember? It was a small room in one of the hallways of C Deck. What happened? The same thing that happened to every one of us when we were abducted. A can releasing some sort of gas was thrown into the room. I believe the gas is some sort of incapacitating agent. Then, that means it was... Zero. Looks that way, huh? There's nothing else I have to tell you. When I woke up, I was in this coffin. Junpei crossed his arms in thought. Why had Zero made Mr. X wear Snake's clothes? How had the results of that trick benefited Zero? It was a mystery. Junpei couldn't make sense of it. He also didn't have a satisfactory explanation for how he discerned the key code for the coffin. It just didn't make sense. Truth had gone, and truth had gone. What did that mean? Did it mean anything? And why had Junpei felt compelled to push the buttons on the bracelet after hearing them? Seven had asked him about it while they waited for Clover to finish crying. He had no answer for him then, and he still didn't. All he could say was that it seemed to have been a subconscious reaction. His fingers simply moved of their own accord. So, you guys already know what's going on here, but he had an epiphany. And of course, we know that there's that net of knowledge, and he was able to pull from one of the bad endings and remember this passcode, even though this never happened, you know, in the game lore. So it's really, really cool. I think if you don't do the safe end first before you get to there, it gives you the coffin ending. It stops at that coffin part, and that's why we did the safe ending before we did the true ending, because otherwise I'd have to go back and that would be completely stupid. So now you guys are up to date on that. If you don't do the safe ending, you cannot get the true ending, and that's why we absolutely needed to do that one. It was the only explanation that made any sort of sense, and it made almost no sense. Junpei had no idea what any of it meant. His mind was a maelstrom of mysteries, clues, theories, and more mysteries. He could barely think. And of course, Snake and Clover had been subjects in a similar experiment 9 years ago. The ability to access a morphogenic field is affected by a couple of things. The first is epiphany, and the other is danger. And someone did actually die. A girl. Her name was, There had been another experiment conducted on the same ship 9 years ago. A girl had died during it. Morphogenic field theory. The two murders. Switching clothes. The Nanri game. And whatever strange thing that was happening to Junpei himself. The maelstrom in his head spat out words and ideas that disappeared back into it almost as soon as he grasped them. But as he struggled through them, Junpei began to realize something. There was something that tied all of them together. Zero. He was the ringleader, the person who trapped 9 people on a sinking ship. Zero knew everything. If they could uncover Zero's identity, all of their questions would be answered. Who was Zero? Junpei had the beginnings of a theory. If he could only test it. Or perhaps. At any rate, we'll have plenty of time to decipher the details later. For now, it is of utmost importance that we escape. Junpei, it was 4:30 the last time you checked the clock, yes? That means we have less than an hour. We must hurry. Hey! How are we gonna get out of here? Isn't that obvious? Through the other number 9 door. Oh yeah! Yeah, you're right! With Snake, we can open the door. Don't tell me you hadn't figured that out. As they snapped back and forth, Junpei glanced at Snake's left hand. He was wearing a bracelet with the 2 on it. Come on, you gotta tell me these things. I assumed you'd figured it out. Forget it. Let's just get going. 7 stomped off toward the smaller number 9 door. Clover, Snake, and Junpei followed. 7 quickly laid his hand on the red. An asterisk appeared on the screen. Junpei and the others followed suit and laid their hands on the scanner panel. Soon, there were 4 asterisks on the screen. 7 glanced at them, then laid his hand on the lever of the red. Alright, you guys ready to go? Yes. Yep. Junpei paused for a moment. Not yet. Huh? Before we go in, I'd like to check something. You want to check something? Yeah, but before I do, 7, could you pull the lever? I want to make sure we can verify it with just the 4 of us. What do you mean? We don't need... Just do it, alright? But if the door opens, don't go in yet, okay? Please. This is really important. I really need to check this, okay? Work with me here. Junpei looked directly into 7's eyes. The older man looked back for a moment, then nodded. Fine. Seven pulled down the lever and door 9 creaked open. Then they waited. 6, 7, 8. After 9 seconds, the door closed. Alright, that means the 4 of us can go into door 9. So? We knew that already. It's obvious. Obvious? Yeah, you're right, it is. Now, what happens if we add Zero's bracelet? What? Zero's bracelet. Why don't you take it out, Clover? For a moment, Clover looked surprised, but she recovered quickly and stuck her tongue out at Junpei. So you did know I had it. I picked it up because I thought it might be useful sometime. She reached into one of the pockets of her voluminous jacket and produced a bracelet. Junpei took it from her and turned to 7. It was in the left hand of the corpse in the captain's quarters. If you look at it, you can see it's got a 0 on the face. Just to make this a little easier to talk about, I'm going to call the guy we found dead in the captain's quarters, Cap. If Cap was really 0, then I should be able to open door 9 with just me, Clover, and this bracelet. But most importantly, if you were Cap, and this was your game, would you really put one of these bracelets on yourself? Anyway, let's just give it a shot. Clover, give me your hand. Okay. After he and Clover scanned their bracelets, he waved Caps over the scanner panel. Then, he pulled the lever. However, the door didn't open. The red's display read error. I knew it. Now, what does this tell us?
Maybe the bracelet has to be on your wrist in order for it to work.
No, that's impossible. Did you see how the panel showed a third asterisk when I scanned the cap's bracelet? Whether or not it's on your wrist doesn't matter. All you have to do is put the bracelet near the panel for it to register. 7 waves his bracelet in front of the scanner panel. Sure enough, a single asterisk appeared on the red.
Huh, looks like you're right.
See? So, what does that mean? There's only one possibility. That bracelet isn't the number 0. Is that what you're saying? That's right. Then, what number is it? Let's find out. Junpei. Oh god. Oh god. Oh, what was the cap's number again? I don't remember. I don't remember what the cap's number was. It was a 6? I think? I don't remember though. If it was a 6, then we would need, let's see. No, that wouldn't work because you'd need 3 6s to get 18, which would equal 9. I don't know. 7 Junpei, so that equals 3. If this combination opened the door, then cap's bracelet was number 6. Oh, well, would that work then? I did it! It was a 6. Did I just do the math wrong? Hey, at least it worked, right?
Hey, it opened. The door opened.
What? Why? What does that mean? Both Seven and Clover seemed rather shaken as they turned to look at Junpei for answers. The door slid heavily shut. Junpei raised an eyebrow. Isn't it obvious? Cap's bracelet is number 6.
But doesn't it say 0?
This isn't a 0. The symbol on here isn't a number. It's a letter. O.
Oh?
Whoa. Wait a minute. I don't get it. I mean, we figured out the cap's bracelet is 6, right? Yeah. Does that mean there are 2 people with 6s? Before Junpei could answer, Snake spoke up. There is, most likely, only one person with a 6. But I don't get it. What about June? Well, this is only an educated guess. Oh, that's right, Junpei isn't 6. June is 6. I'm an idiot. That's why it worked, but it didn't in my head. I think June's number was never 6 to begin with. Her bracelet was flipped. In other words, June's real number is 9. That seems most likely. Then all this number door stuff was just a load of crap. Why would you say that? Because if June is 9, then the numbers wouldn't match up. Clover grabbed Junpei's notebook and began to write furiously in it. Junpei leaned over to look at it. List of all the numbered doors June's gone through. Clover read each row out loud so that Snake could follow along. Alright, I made a list of all the numbered doors that June has gone through so far. I wrote down which door she went into and with who. And I wrote what all the numbers were. So if you switch 9, wherever there's a 6, the numbers don't work. If the digital root's 7, then you can't open door 4. If the digital root is 2, then you can't open door 8. Clover, do you notice anything interesting on that list? What do you mean?
You're talking about 3, right?
3?
Santa's always in the room with her. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. What about it? It's quite simple, really. You told me that the first time you came to this room, Santa was the first to refuse to leave June behind. Now, doesn't that beg the question, why? Why would Santa do such a thing? The answer is easy. Because Santa can't open door 9 with only 7 and Lotus. Of course, there's only one reason for that. His number isn't actually 3. Santa's real number, 7. Would you be so kind as to modify my sister's equations?
Yeah, sure.
7 took the pen from a confused Clover and began to adjust her calculations.
This is what you were getting at, right, Snake?
He read out the changes he'd made When he finished, he looked at Snake. Snake smiled. Thank you. That is exactly right, 7. Santa's true number wasn't 3. It was 0. No way. Santa is 0? And June was 9. Sorry, I did Snake. Snake had 7's voice for a second. And June was 9, not 6. On the contrary, Santa was 0, not 3. Plus 3 and minus 3. They cancel one another out. Nothing appears out of order.
Then that means that even though he set the whole thing up, Santa was still playing by the rules of the nonary game this whole time.
Precisely. So, you're saying Santa planned this whole thing? I'm not sure if he acted alone or not, but I think it's safe to conclude that he is 0. If my hypothesis is correct. Clover bit her lip. She seemed to be having some difficulty believing her brother's explanation. Junpei remained silent and thought. Snake's hypothesis didn't satisfy him. June's bracelet was flipped. Even if that were possible, then there would have been 2 number 9 bracelets. And if that were the case... Alright, that's enough talking. Let's go. It's high time we went through that door. So what do you guys think? You think Santa's 0? Door 9 opened. They leapt through. It makes sense if June's is flipped. The dead was directly in front of them as they came through the door. Quickly, they scanned their bracelets. And the detonator stopped. Phew. After pausing for a moment to catch their collective breath, Junpei and his companions headed down the long hallway in front of them. At the end was a set of stairs leading down into the ship. It looked as though they led all the way to the bottom deck. They looked down. It didn't seem to be flooded. After deciding it was safe, they headed down the stairs. Before long, Junpei and his companions found themselves on the bottom deck. They turned left into another hallway, at the end of which they found another door. And of course, there was a symbol engraved over the keyhole. It looked like the sort of harpoon one would use to hunt fish, the kind with 3 prongs. Snake traced the shape of it with his fingers. This is the Neptune symbol. There must be a key around here somewhere. Neptune key. All Junpei had was the Uranus key card. Not the same planet, and not even the same sort of key. Clearly, it wasn't going to open this door. After examining the door for a few more minutes, they gave up and headed back the way they'd come. With a little more searching, they found the metal door. To the side of it was a card reader. A symbol was engraved onto the card reader. It matched the Uranus symbol on the key card Junpei was carrying. This is the place. He muttered to himself and slid the card through the reader. It beeped once, and the light on it turned green. With a heavy metal groan, the door creaked open. Junpei, Clover, Snake, and 7 looked at one another, nodded, and stepped through. The room they found themselves in was full of books. It looked remarkably like a library. Not the sort of library where large numbers of people came to read books, more the sort of library that was simply a place to store books. He felt a little overwhelmed by the sheer number of books, but Junpei did his best to speak with authority. Alright, if we want to get through that door and get through that door out there, we need the Neptune key. I say we split up and look for it. Okay. Very well.
Sure thing.
Good. Let's get started then. We don't have a lot of time. Hurry! Alice sleeps in a small chamber past the Forest of Knowledge. As he began his search, for reasons he didn't fully understand, Junpei felt those particular words float through his mind. Alright, you know what? That is actually a perfect place to stop it. We will go ahead and start searching through the library in the next episode. I believe there's 2 more escape rooms that we need to do, and then we'll be on our way to the true ending, so very, very soon we'll be coming to the conclusion. But let me know whether you guys think that Snake's theory is correct. Is June's wrist watch or bracelet flipped, and is Santa actually 0? Let me know in the comments. I'm really excited to see what you guys have to say about that. But for now, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if you enjoyed. I'll see you guys on the next MAMJ. Let's go. I mean, that's just... Some of Snake's bones went right through his skin. I think the explosion must have thrown him against the wall or something. There was a broken bone just sticking out of his left arm. Suddenly, Junpei realized what he was saying. How could he have been so cruel? He clapped his hand over his mouth. But it was already too late. He turned to look at Clover. She was glaring at him furiously. What did you just say? Her words sounded cold. He knew an apology would hardly atone for what he'd done, but he tried anyway. Oh man, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I really don't know what I was thinking. I mean, no, that's not what I'm talking about. What did you say about his arm?